After calling 3,542 Edmonton Oilers hockey games, the voice of the team for 37 years, Rod Phillips, announced in front of family, friends, and media colleagues that the 2010-2011 season would be his last tour of the NHL.
We've been able to convince Rod to do 10 more games. We're going to call them the Rod Classics. We like what it represents. It will be 10 classic games coming up this coming season. Rod's going to call the game, and we're going to bring special guests to the play-by-play booth with him.
I was injured, and Wayne Gretzky stayed home as well for some reason. He was injured, and we were living in Riverbend listening to the game on radio because there was no television. And it sounded like it was at the Detroit Olympia, and it sounded like it was a phenomenal game. And the next day when the players arrived home, we said, geez, it sounded like we missed a heck of a game. And the players were like, that was the worst friggin' game. The players and coaches, trainers, managers, we want to wish you all the best. And in a lot of respects, it's a very sad day, but we know next year will be exciting. We'll look forward to that, and you'll be an Oiler forever, and an Oiler in everybody's heart. So thank you, Rod, and we look forward to hearing you speak.
If you think after 37 it's easy to walk away from a love affair like this, think again.
When I got this job in 1973, the Oilers and CFRN Radio tried to keep it a secret because they didn't think I could do the job. For 37 years, I was living a dream. And I just felt very fortunate to do it for as long as I did. I have to thank the Oilers very much. They treated me marvelously, and I can't believe what great people they've been to be associated with over the years. I got 10 more to do. I'm going to have a lot of fun doing those, and Debbie's going to be with me.
Game 1, Calgary. The Battles of Alberta revisited.
Holy guy. Who is this guy, Glenn Sather?
I'm better looking than Glenn Sather. And I'm a lot younger. Take that, Slats.
Gotta eat. Let's eat. Straight to the food, eh?
Excuse me, Mr. Fitness.
Oh, come on. I resemble that remark.
Hey, wait, Rod. You have a damn thing to help my career, but I'm going to get your dinner tonight.
It's like you're on camera.
It's only $5. Can I get 2 receipts?
What a guy.
Rod's pre-game routine at the Saddle Dome for the last time.
I just think this is a wonderful idea. You're doing 10 games, 37 years and 10 games. Congratulations on an awesome career.
Thank you very much, Ken. This will be my last ever Battle of Alberta game. And, I was just sitting here before the game started tonight thinking about how many great nights these two teams have had.
It was an amazing rivalry.
These games were awesome.
Gretzky moves in, shoots,
The two teams absolutely despised each other.
Fans in Calgary hated the Oilers, and I suspect fans in Edmonton hated the Flames.
Both cities have a mutual dislike for one another. It was like going to war every night.
When I hear people in the East say, it's such a rivalry between the Canadiens and the Nordique, I go, you kidding me?
Here's Tikkanen in across the Calgary line. Fires it, scores!
You were the safest broadcaster in the league when you had Dave Semenko as your color.
Nobody messed with me, baby. I could say whatever I wanted.
Yeah. So I've known Rod for years, since I was 20 years old when I came to the team. So, he'd been a friend for many years, and, we got along well.
Ken, you know very well when you're associated with something for as long as you and I have been associated, you just don't walk away from
Never.
it. I mean, I'm always going to be an Oilers fan.
And you know what?
I'm never
You're
going to be
an
a
Oiler.
Flames. Penalty to Ian White, so the Oilers on the power play with Gagne, Hemsky, Penner, Foster, and Whitney. Face off left side of Kiprasov.
Here's a pass, missed Hemsky at the Calgary line. He got to it, turns out in front, he scores! Hemsky, a great goal by the Oilers. It's a 1-0 hockey game.
The sad part of it is this is my last battle of Alberta. I want to thank the Oilers for giving me the opportunity to do this. Now that I got kick-started here in Calgary tonight, it's going to be fun.
The Oilers' first NHL home game was against the Detroit Red Wings, an Original Six team. Over 3 decades later, the Oilers marched to the Stanley Cup Final again and started that 2006 journey against those same Red Wings.
Nikolai Habibulin will start in goal for the Edmonton Oilers here at Rexall Place tonight, but Eberle gets it back. Here's Foster from the line of shot, right in front. Hall scores! Taylor Hall at the side of the net, a power play goal, and it's a 1-1 hockey game.
There was just absolutely no chance that the Oilers could beat this team, and the Oilers just managed to squeak into the playoffs that year.
I think as a coach and as a player in that situation, you just think you're going to win. You know, I just thought we were better than that.
Legacy got it into the corner, comes in front, Pisani scores!
We were an 8th seed, so we were written off by a lot of people, but within that locker room, we believed.
Comes off the backboard, Horkoff jammed at it, Rapper, oh, Samsonov, here's his set, they score! Jared Stoll in sudden death overtime! The Oilers lead the series 2-1!
I think the thing that separated that run from many of the previous runs was it really bridged a generational gap. And it really added another generation of Oiler fans and passionate Oiler fans. And it really personified for those new fans what it was like to be an Oiler fan.
Jason Smith to Pisani, he's in alone! Scores! Fernando Pisani ties it up! Hemsky trying to work in now, Samsonov, he got it to Hemsky, he scores! Hemsky with 1:06 to go in the 3rd period. Oh, a miracle goal by the Oilers. This building it's beyond anything I can ever remember.
He was always really living and dying by the wins and losses.
Rod came with the team just like some of the other baggage we had to put up with. Actually, we had a lot of fun with Rod. He was a good guy, and he was a big part of the team because he was very emotional about everything.
Roddy was a fixture in our dressing room.
He was part of the group, you know. He wasn't somebody that we kept on the outside, you know, for, you know, like he's, you know, media. There wasn't that separation there. He was sort of one of the group, and he won and lost with us every night.
He was the play-by-play guy that actually felt like he was a part of the team. And the other thing about him is he lived and died game to game with us.
People would put the game on TV and hit the radio on, and so you would watch TV and watch the Oiler game, and yet they would listen to Rod Phillips do the play-by-play on the radio.
When somebody shows that amount of emotion and passion 105 times a year, it's just almost inconceivable to think that anybody could get themselves to that emotional level that many times, but that was really the brilliance.
There was games there where, man, I was sitting there listening and going, boy, how the heck could you keep that momentum up and that sound in your voice and be watching the same game I'm watching on tape?
He had this tremendous following, almost like a Foster Hewitt following in Edmonton, and he was so passionate about the team, and people loved listening to him.
Rod goes back a long way, all the way to Winnipeg and Edmonton being 2 of the WHA teams getting into the NHL. For Rod's final game in Phoenix, he's full of Jets memories.
Devin Dubnyk will start in goal for the Edmonton Oilers here in Phoenix tonight. It'll be Ilya Bryzgalov in goal for the Phoenix Coyotes.
Hi. The Oilers played the Jets 5 times in the Stanley Cup playoffs, and Winnipeg never won a series. So there is a real playoff rivalry with Winnipeg and now Phoenix. And then 1990 comes along, and they win the first game in Edmonton, score 7 goals on Bill Ranford, and it was Bill's first kind of opportunity at playoff hockey. And I remember telling Ron Lowe after the game, I said, you know what? I think Bill Ranford just had stage fright tonight. He's a better goalie than that, and you got to stay with him.
Gary didn't go down the wing and slap the puck all that often, and when it went in the net, it was the quiet in the building, and someone had just completely sucked the enthusiasm out of the building.
Mark Lamb scored a couple of huge goals, overtime goals in that series, and the Oilers found a way to win it.
Well, that's good. Congratulations. Thank you. It took me 3 years to become a real broadcaster.
For 40 years, he's made countless friends in hockey, and they all know one thing. He has a real, not imagined, fear of flying.
It's well documented how he sat beside Wayne on all the flights, and they would comfort one another because of their fear of flying.
They're both afraid of flying, and I would be behind them, and Rod would have his head in his hand, in his lap as the plane was taking off, and when the plane was landing, and the slightest bit of turbulence, Rod, you could hear Rod, "What's going on? What's going on?"
It's okay sitting beside him because he mostly puts his head down, doesn't talk. The worst place to be on an airplane is in front of Rod for takeoff and landing, because he reaches up and he grabs the seat, and as you're going up, he's trying to pull the plane up with the back of your seat.
He'd been known to have a couple of those little airline bottles just to give him a couple of bracers to get his confidence going.
That's where I learned how to drink scotch, when I was 30,000 feet terrified.
Kudos to him to be able to last as long as he has, and not being a real good flyer.
Once the plane hit the altitude, then he became Rod again, and the jokes started flying, and that great laugh started going, and then all of a sudden you'd hear the ding, time for landing, and smile's gone, head's down, grabbing the back of the seat, and away you go.
For a kid from Kalmar, Alberta, who idolized the great Danny Gallivan, there's no bigger thrill than calling a Montreal Canadiens game. There's a rich Oilers-Montreal history, a seismic playoff upset in 1981, and the historical Heritage Classic. Rod circled the Edmonton-Montreal game as a must Rod's Classic.
So the Oilers and the Canadiens here at the Bell Center in Montreal, a jam-packed crowd like it is every night. Hemsky, where is it? They jam away at it. They score! I think it might have been Gagne, but it's impossible to tell until we see the replay. But Pajärvi had a part in the Oilers' second goal.
The Forum was really quite a historical place.
I remember it well. The feeling would have, at least from my perspective, but I think shared amongst the players, was, scared to death.
It was surreal at the time because nobody in the country gave the Oilers any chance whatsoever to beat the Montreal Canadiens.
Really went there to just enjoy the experience and have fun, to play, the historic Montreal Canadiens in the historic Montreal Forum is going to be a real, particularly for me coming from the province of Quebec, a real chance of a lifetime.
We took the chance and put Andy Moog in the nets, and that just seemed to change everything.
He had a meeting with with Gary Edwards that morning after practice, and Glenn said to Gary, I'm going to start Andy Moog tonight.
And Gary said, Slats, you're making the biggest mistake of your life. Well, not so fast, Kowalski. It was a shrewd, brilliant decision, and Andy just took over from there.
He made great save after great save.
That series in 1981 with the Canadiens was like two cars passing each other on the expressway going opposite directions.
I think probably the happiest I ever saw that team was after that first game in Montreal.
There was a bit of a sidebar to the Canadian series, because I believe it was their goaltender who said that Guy Lafleur was going to put Wayne Gretzky in his back pocket, and he made two mistakes there. One, first, obviously underestimating Gretzky, but also underestimating the team and all the the great cast of players to play with Wayne, like Paul Coffey really came to the forefront, and Andy Mogan Nets and Yari Curry and Anderson and Messier. But I know that Wayne, anytime he was challenged, he had an amazing ability to really strike.
Once we got through that series, it was a whole new scene for those kids.
Gagne and Hemsky, short-handed, Gagne in on goal, shoots, scores! Sam Gagne, roof job on Carey Price, and it's a 3-3 hockey game. Short-handed goal for the Oilers.
What an unbelievable sight this is, to see somewhere in the neighborhood of 60,000 people here at Commonwealth Stadium in Edmonton this afternoon.
It was just a fabulous day, but it was just so darn cold that it made it really difficult. And then where we were broadcasting from, we were in the press box at Commonwealth Stadium. You couldn't see the players' numbers from where we were.
When I finally did get on the ice and got playing the game and saw the reaction of the fans and almost this surreal environment, the cold added to the whole thing. Sitting on the bench and hearing all the little sayings and all the little idiosyncrasies of guys that we had for a couple decades prior, it was really a special memory for all of us. Just having those great players, not only the Oilers but the Canadiens, the two incredibly successful organizations.
Right wing side, Anderson got it in front. They score! Fired into the net by Ken Lindsman, and the Edmonton Oilers have a 1-0 lead over the Montreal Canadiens.
It was a spectacle. It was the first time anything like that was kind of played around these parts in the NHL for sure. We played the game and all, but to see Lafleur and Gretzky and Ken Dryden and Coffey and Curry and all those guys out there before, it was special.
It was one that I'll never forget in regards to not only was it cold, but it was like being a kid again and just reflecting back on being outdoors.
Morley, I don't think I have ever seen a more incredible hockey sight in my life.
Plays it to Camilleri, stolen, and here's Penner on a breakaway, in on goal, scores! Dustin Penner wins it in overtime for the Edmonton Oilers. A great move on Carey Price, and the Oilers win it 4-3.
The New York Islanders and the Oilers are forever linked. The first Oilers Cup win in Edmonton. And for the game against the Islanders, Rod and Morley Scott are teamed up again in the broadcast booth.
There was a big difference in age between Morley and myself.
I remember going to sleep when I was in high school and listening to Rod do games.
I think that served to an advantage in a lot of ways.
A lot of the rinks where there's a walk to the hotel, there was always autograph hounds there. And they would always stop Rod and I, mostly Rod. He would have, this is Morley. And then, okay. So
we had so many great nights and great broadcasts, but
starting lineups tonight, the Oilers with Cogliano, Penner, and Brule up front, Gilbert and Peckham on the blue line. Grabner's got a breakaway, in on goal. He shoots, and Dubnyk made the save. Here's Penner battling with Hamonic. He centered it. A shot, rebound, they score! Brule on a rebound shot from Cogliano. Now to Penner, cutting in on goal. He's in alone. He scores! Penner short-handed. 2-0 the Oilers lead.
They just weren't ready to play against the Islanders in 1983.
They had the experience, they had the savvy, they just had the swagger.
Here's Gretzky coming to the side of the net. Gretzky was knocked down. Here's Gretzky coming after Billy Smith. I'll tell you, Billy Smith is a boorish hockey player.
The Islanders were a little bit beaten up because they wanted more than we did.
The 4 straight was probably the biggest kick in the pants we ever had.
So I think at that moment, a lot of our players figured out that you have to play just a little bit harder to be a Stanley Cup champion.
And I think going into the series in '84, I think we were nervous.
It was the Grant Fuhr show. I mean, Grant was just absolutely superb.
Grant was battling Billy Smith. That series and that cup really helped to cement it for Grant.
Whether you were a player, an announcer like Rod was, it was a special time. It was a special time to be a fan. It was a special time for us as players. We knew that when Wayne came, that he was going to be something special.
Personally, being in the broadcast booth and knowing that I was calling Stanley Cup championship for the Edmonton Oilers in the city of Edmonton. They were all special, but nothing beats the first one.
It's dumped into Melanson, 5 seconds remaining. 4, 3, 2, 1. It is all over. The Edmonton Oilers have won the Stanley Cup. The Edmonton Oilers have done it in 5 short years. They have become the 4-time champions.
And this one winds down, and the Oilers get a much-needed victory as they defeat the Islanders by a score of 2-1.
Good start, set the table for a good night and a win.
All right, well, it was fun, Morley. Thanks.
Yeah, it was, Ron. I loved it.
Okay, and this hockey game is over. The final score, the Oilers 2, the Islanders 1.
Along the way, there were unbelievable moments. Records, achievements, and memories, now indelibly etched with the famous Rod Phillips soundtrack, describing the action.
He really separated himself with the passion that he had for the game. And
Rod painted the picture for so many fans.
He wore everything on his sleeve. He wore his emotions on his sleeve. He wore his heart on the sleeve.
I love the passion. I loved seeing Rod after a game because he'd take the headsets off, put them down, sit back, big sigh, and then you look at him and the hair's tousled, the tie's loose, the sleeves are rolled up, the shirt's wrinkly. It's like he played.
Like he really cared passionately about the game and was emotionally into the game.
Hemsky cuts in, shoots, scores! Oh, into the Oilers zone. Oh, he sent flying. A great hip check by Bergeron. Over to Chichu, he shoots. Oh, what an unbelievable save. Richardson to McGillis, he just scores! The Edmonton Oilers have tied the game. A stunning come from behind tie.
Glenn Anderson, 3-1, 2:24 to go.
The Edmonton Oilers have stunned the Detroit Red Wings. They eliminate the Wings in 6 games. They come from behind a 2-0 deficit in Game 6. They score 4 goals in the 3rd period, and there is jubilation at Rexall Place in Edmonton.
Well, we were the witnesses, and Rod actually got to call the great moments. You know, most of them involved Gretzky.
Gretzky, will he shoot? He does. He scores! Wayne Gretzky's 50th goal in 39 games.
Gretzky took it away from him. Gretzky moving in. The shot. He scores! Gretzky, 77th of the year. The miracle has ended.
Officials bore the brunt of a lot of his wrath over the years.
That can't be a hand pass.
You can imagine if there was, you can fine a broadcaster for things he said about the officials, like they do coaches and everything else. Like he'd still be working.
If it's a bad call, you should be able to rectify it. That is an absolutely pitifully bad call by the referee.
That is just absolutely incredibly bad.
It made Rod who he was. If he was vanilla and said everything was hunky-dory, the guy at home or the woman at home would say, Jesus, this seems like a pretty boring game.
As far as the referee thing is concerned, I just want to say this. There's one reason I have high blood pressure, and it's because of the god-darn referees in the National Hockey League.
I remember the banner raising with Gretzky because I had to make the speech as well, and that speech that Rod had to deliver, he was a wreck.
Hockey fans, tonight's first star,
Number 99, Wayne Gretzky.
Between Messier and Rod, I don't know which guy cries the easiest in those things. They're both very passionate, very compassionate about their friends. You know, that's why they're who they are.
National Hockey League is a wonderful league, but nobody ever had more fun than the people who are involved in the WHA.
A Bill Hunter major press conference to announce another major press conference.
Well, good morning, gentlemen. We are happy to see everyone here this morning at 7:30 for our Oilers breakfast press conference. It's Tuesday, of course, as you all know, and we are very pleased to tell you that next Tuesday morning we're going to be having a major press conference to announce a major signing for the Edmonton Oilers of the World Hockey Association. So I want all of you to be here next Tuesday morning at 7:30. It'll be another breakfast press conference, and we will have a major announcement. It will be one that the entire hockey world are talking about.
Dallas. Plenty of Oilers history here. 6 straight playoff series in the 90s. And for Rod, a chance to be reunited with lifelong friend and former colorman Ken Brown, an original Oiler and a natural beside Rod.
Ken was a big part of our broadcasts in the 80s, but even more than that, I mean, Kenny was the first goaltender the Edmonton Oilers ever had in 1972.
You know what? I'm so thrilled to be here because Rod and I have been friends for so long, and we did this together for 13 years.
He was an Edmonton boy and grew up in Jasper Place. Played his junior hockey in Moose Jaw. I can remember one great playoff series at the Oil Kings in Moose Jaw. It started out to be a best-of-7 series, and it was such good hockey that Bill Hunter decided that they'd make it a best-of-9.
And then to be able to have our families involved, you know, to do those kinds of things. Doggone it, my kids took Wayne Gretzky to school for show and tell. You know, think about that, being such a good friend of Rod's and having that kind of friendship for so long. Wow, that's awesome.
Schmid, a drive, save, rebound, they score! The puck jammed into the net. Here's Jones, a shot to save, rebound. Reddix to Jones, he scores! Ryan Jones and a rebound shot, and the Oilers have tied this game up 2-2.
To me, that series was likely one of the most unusual in that we got down, and yet we never really felt like we were out of it.
Good teams that were really willing to, you know, play desperate, and that's what I really find that that series was all about.
Marchand wins the draw. Richardson to McGillis. She just scores! The Edmonton Oilers have tied the game!
Dallas couldn't believe it. They were up 3-0, and there were 3 minutes to play in the game, and all of a sudden they're in overtime.
Drops it back for Bookberger. He hits the net, shoots, scores!
And in the end, we should have been out of it. Curtis makes the unbelievable save.
He comes on in front, got a shot away, save, rebound. Oh, Curtis Joseph just made a harrowing save off a down Joe Newendike. How did he make that save?
The Todd Marchand goal in Dallas in '97, I just remember the sheer joy when Marchand scored the goal. And
I remember listening to it afterwards. We had Rod in the play-by-play, and it was bizarre. He was off the wall. And I could hear Slats giving it the yoo-hoo in the background.
And Doug Waite's got the puck, and he'll wheel back for the Oilers with Marchand. Marchand's got it. He's in all alone. Marchand shoots. Scores! And Marchand wins it in sunset overtime with 7:34 to go in the first overtime period. The Oilers are going to Denver.
To walk away from it with a win is something that I'll cherish my whole life.
That goal will stand up with a lot of great goals scored over the years. But a lot of people today remember Toddy Marchand's goal.
They just brought us up some beautiful cake, and we're going to eat that a little bit later, but just fantastic. Thanks very much to all of the nice people in the Dallas Stars organization. Now we have a line ball here in Dallas. Here's Ott grabbing with one of the Oilers. A feud that's gone on for a lot of years between the Edmonton Oilers and the Dallas Stars continues here in Dallas tonight. Ken, I want to thank you so much for being with me on the broadcast tonight. It means a lot to me, but it was a great fun having you here, my friend, and thanks again for everything.
Treat, partner, and again, I thank you so very much, and thank the Oilers organization for doing this for us.
In February, the Boston Bruins come to town. And with them, they bring the memory of 2 Oilers Stanley Cup wins against the Bruins, including bizarre power failures and triple overtime winning goals.
Now the puck at the point, Vandermeer the drive, blocked, Hemsky scores! Hemsky and a rebound, 1-0 the Oilers lead.
In the 88 finals, we had 0 success in Boston Garden as a team in the regular season. We'd never won a game in Boston Garden. There was a real fear as a group, and I say fear in a good way, that respect, knowing that by no means did we think it was going to be easy.
That building, the old Garden, I mean, it was the worst place ever. By then, it was over 50 years old.
As a young guy, I had watched the Bruins and the Canadiens for many years play in the playoffs. But on top of it, yeah, there was some moments. The building was so hot and no air conditioning.
There was that game in Boston when the lights went out.
Blackout here at the Garden in Boston, and they have the auxiliary lights on.
They had a guy with a megaphone, and he started to say, clear the building immediately. So we were sitting up in this press box. You had to crawl through a kind of a tunnel. You had to crawl through it to get to your broadcast location. Well, we couldn't get out of there. And the first thing we thought is, there must be a fire or something. What are we going to do? They had a lot of trouble winning in the regular season, but they have never lost a game in Boston in the playoffs.
The game is over. The Edmonton Oilers have won their 4th Stanley Cup championship. They are a dynasty as the Oilers win the hockey game 6-3. They sweep the Boston Bruins.
Hemsky on top of it, the Penner shot. Oh, big save by Tuukka Rask. Both throwing some right hands now. Oh, a wild right. Now more right hands by Vandermeer. Great battle here between 2 wonderful hockey players, Vandermeer and Lucic. And the fans are standing at Rexall Place. They'll go off. I'll tell you what, that is respect.
And they're ready in Beantown.
I can remember doing a talk show when we went to Boston. The guy doing the talk show was talking about the Bruins and how very little opportunity the Oilers would have to beat the Boston Bruins. And, I was tried to be as kind as I could, but I said, you're talking about a team here that has won 4 Stanley Cups. They don't have Wayne Gretzky on the team this year, but they still have a great hockey team. And I think that you might give the Oilers a little bit more of an opportunity to win the series than what you are doing.
Here's Murphy in front. Gray scores! Adam Graves and a pass from Joe Murphy.
Basically, the reports were we should just mail the 4 points in and try our luck back in Edmonton.
I remember, Peter's goal because he hadn't played since the middle of the second period. And finally, John Muckler, just because everybody else was wearing out, threw him on the ice. He
gets it to Klima, drills the gun, he scores! Peter Klima with 4:47 to go!
By 1:30 in the morning, I hadn't been to the bathroom. And I was thankful to see the Oilers get the win, but I love Peter Klima for more than that. That's a ridiculous thing, but it was absolute agony.
The champions are the Edmonton Oilers. They have won their 5th Stanley Cup championship in 7 years.
Here's Brule with a shot, he scores! Brule with one of those sharp angle shots off the left side, and this is a 3-2 hockey game. Morty again, thanks thanks very much.
My pleasure.
This will be it for you and I, and I've got 3 more to do.
In 1998, the Oilers were back in the playoffs and again captured some magic against Joe Sakic and the Colorado Avalanche. The Rod's Classics Tour stops one more time in Denver.
In '98, the Avs, I'm sure when that series was over, had to look back and kick themselves a little bit. And I can remember some of the Avalanche players were quoted in the paper saying, "What are we doing back here in Edmonton?"
Oh yeah,
absolutely. And they lost Game 6, and now. Cujo gets a shutout. Right. Now they come back here, and now the Oilers are believing that they got something going, and they did, and they won the last game 4-0, and the Avs just couldn't get it going after taking a 3-1 lead.
But it was a tremendous lesson, I think, just in playoff hockey. You take that foot off the pedal of a hockey club, and you let them back in. It doesn't matter how much more talent you may think you have, if they've got that will and they're playing, because those last 3 games, and again, we're talking about a club that had a lot of talent, the Avalanche. They scored 1 goal.
It's not like Colorado weren't getting scoring chances in the games. I mean, they were getting quality opportunities, but they couldn't score on Cujo. And, if you do that one game and then a second game, players start to think, what are we going to do to beat this guy?
These are games that Edmonton went out and flat won. They won 2-0 and 4-0 the last couple of games, and we're the better hockey club. It wasn't as if it was some sort of...
It wasn't even close.
Yeah.
Wade on the right wing boards, works it in front, Mironov, shoot, scores! Boris Mironov rips one by Patrick Waugh!
Joseph out of his net, wheels it around. Oh, Joseph knocked down by one of the Oilers. Here's the puck right in front. Corvaison, what a save by Joseph! Wheels it out to Wade. A pass to Guerin. He's got a breakaway. Bill Guerin in. Scores! Bill Guerin! Miller now chipping it out to center. And baby, this one is all over. The Edmonton Oilers have come from behind. A 3-1 deficit in the series. They're mobbing Curtis Joseph and Mr. Hitchcock. Are you ready?
Mark on the right side, he lets the shot go. It's knocked down in front of the net. Loose puck, Cogliano drive. They score! Ripped into the net by Sam Gagne. Out in front, Gilbert. A weak pass. The Oilers, Ryan Jones scores! On a deflection at the side of the net. Plays it now to PRV and across the line to Horkoff. He scores! Horkoff on a beautiful pass from PRV. This hockey game is over. The Edmonton Oilers defeating the Colorado Avalanche by a score of 5-1, and they pick up their 23rd win of the season.
Some would say Philadelphia is the city brotherly love forgot. The Flyers-Oilers series for 2 Stanley Cups were wars. Rod Phillips loved the road, being in and describing the action. For his final road game, he sees the remnants of the battlefield, the Spectrum.
Was this not the most feared building from a reputation standpoint?
Well, it certainly was one of them. I mean, the Broad Street Bullies, it's right on Broad Street. Coming in here was an intimidating place. The fans were absolutely rabid. They've got great hockey fans. This is a hockey town in every sense of the word.
They are the champions.
All right, now, what's that like? Okay, all right. The fans don't like the call, but they don't like many of them when they go against.
And for this special game, Jim Matheson returns to do color and relive the memories.
I don't think there's a better hockey writer in Canada today than Jim Matheson. He knows everybody in the league, has such deep respect from everybody. Having him on the broadcasts in Rod's Classics, you found out again just how good he was.
Brad Fuhr will start in goal for the Edmonton Oilers tonight. It'll be Ron Hextall in goal for the Philadelphia Flyers.
That, to me, was probably the best team, the 87 team.
Gretzky, a pass in front, Crosby, Curry scores!
There was no love lost between the two teams.
Hextall is, here's Hextall. He's an absolute goof, I'll tell you. He's dropped down Kent Nielsen. That is absolutely criminal. He couldn't clear it. Daniel is good. Anderson in on across the line. Shoot! And they win the series 4-3, and there is a mob scene here at Northlands in Edmonton.
And O'Donnell will play it quickly back up to the line. Schmid fires it back in front. They score! J.F. Schock deflected it in front of the net. A harmless-looking shot from Schmid, but when you got somebody in front of the net, good things happen. It's a 3-1 hockey game.
Then it's capped off when Rod's wife, Debbie, surprises him with a family visit. The one thing he'd never had in 37 years on the road.
This is my final broadcast of Rod's Classics as far as road games are concerned. Bob, thank you very much. It's been a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to the final game in Edmonton against Los Angeles on March 29th. Thank you very much.
It was a kicker. Let's have some more fun coming up in the end of March.
March, Edmonton. A season and a career wind down.
Hey, Joey, how are you, buddy?
If you're wondering why we're here, we phoned Debbie and said, we'd like to do this. Where should we go? What's his favorite restaurant? And she said, well, there's a Portuguese place that he really likes that has no parking. And so we picked that one.
Sometimes he'd come down to the dressing room after a game if we lost. And if it was a big game and we lost the game, he was suicidal. It was, what are we going to do? How are we going to get this thing turned around? Don't worry, Rod. Don't worry. It's just a game. We'll figure it out. And, of course, when we won a game, he'd come down to the room and he was the happiest guy in the world. And
I think the key to your success, Rod, was you weren't always the most professional or slick guy in the history of the world of broadcasting, but you might have been the most exciting. And the bottom line is on a career is you were fun to listen to.
He walked on the edge to excite the fans, and at the same time bring his own view to what was going on. Nobody sold more tickets than you. By the time you got done calling a game, all those dairy herders out east of town knew they had to buy season tickets.
There's not much you can give a guy that has everything. He's got a great wife and 2 beautiful kids. And apparently it has every nickel he's ever made saved. So on behalf of the organization, we were really trying to figure out something special that you could enjoy and that Debbie could enjoy. We would like to announce that as of today, you have a share at the Edmonton Country Club with the transfer fee and everything associated with a golf club membership there. And the reason why I said Debbie had to enjoy it too is because you're out of the house doing something and not bothering her. So. And the golf club share is extra special because, believe it or not, this share originally belonged to Wayne Gretzky. Thank you very much for everything you've done, for being an Oiler, true and true, all these years, and I'll pass it back down.
Congratulations.
Okay, thanks.
I've enjoyed you all these years.
Oh, and I've enjoyed you too.
Hey, boys. How are you guys? Best day of my life. It's a big deal, huh? Doobie, how are you, buddy?
For a small kid from a small town in Alberta to be able to be with the team and travel with them and see what goes on and get to know all the players and see all the places that they went, to be a part of that. I mean, how could you beat it? I mean,
how you doing, buddy? How are you? Good. Best of luck tonight.
Yeah, good. Same to you guys. Big game for you guys.
Got a bottle for you.
All right.
I'll get it down to you somehow, or
okay.
after the game, right?
All right. Okay.
Good luck.
Hey,
I like the name on the back of your jersey. Really good, really good. There's a lot of these guys out here.
I think Edmontonians were really lucky to have him for as long as we had, because if it was today and he was doing as good a job as he did for all those years, a big, big company might have picked him up.
Rod Phillips! He's only in possession of 4 Stanley Cup championship rings. Tonight, the Oilers want to make the set complete. And it's with pride and pleasure that we ask the first NHL Oiler, Kevin Lowe, Oilers president of hockey operations, who scored their first Oilers goal with Rod doing the play-by-play, and was on the ice May 19th, 1984, when the Oilers brought the Stanley Cup to our city.
You've been honored by the Hockey Hall of Fame, and now please allow the Oilers to honor you in a way that's been reserved for only our greatest Oilers. Ladies and gentlemen, it's with great pride and pleasure that I now ask for the Rod Phillips banner to be raised.
Guys are just over the wall. Thanks again, buddy. You bet. You've been too good to me.
Man, what those eyes saw, because I know what these eyes saw. And I mean, that's the most mind-boggling thing about his career, is what he watched and what he called and what he brought into your home.
Harvey, not a Cogliano in and right wing board, snapped the shot. Bernier the same, loose puck. Omar took a swipe at it.
He was the Wayne Gretzky of the broadcasting, as far as I'm concerned.
He's going to be an Oiler forever, and I think it was nice to do that game in the broadcast location he's done so many games for. This wasn't like he did it on the road somewhere. It became like sitting in his TV room, sitting on the couch. Like he'd be watching a game when he was sitting in a broadcast booth.
At the end of the day, he was the pulse of the Oilers. He lived every victory and regretted and suffered every defeat.
This, of course, was my final Oilers broadcast. 37 years and 10 games this season.
37 years. 3,542 games. What a career. What a night.
And now this is Rod Phillips saying good night and goodbye from Edmonton.